Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I notice as time goes by, the channel gets more subscribers and other people come in. That there seems to be more and more conflict with a couple things about me in particular, which I find strange because these are conversations, but I'm not really I don't matter in them. We're having we're talking about different things, but me personally is irrelevant. That's why when people ask like, "What are your politics?" Like, why do you care? Like, what does it matter? And maybe this is the Gen X in me or the older person in me. I don't want to talk about politics. It's kind of how I was raised. But two, I kind of naturally resist any idea that you can boil politics down into into two easy camps. I don't think life works that way. I don't think people are meant to work that way. I don't think you're meant to be, in box A or box B, and that's all the boxes you got. That's it. This is all you are. I know a lot of people that I would consider, I don't know, my friends or the people around me often describe themselves as socially liberal, financially conservative. But that meaning, I don't know that that means much anymore. I mean, it's hard to say. The conservatives, for example, the Republicans, which is not conservative, but yeah, you take my meaning. They're happy to spend money. They spend money like crazy. And a lot of liberals, social liberal is a very weird moving target. It's an extremely weird moving target where saying you're socially liberal, what does that mean exactly? It could mean anything now. Uh, and so people ask me this on a regular basis, and I don't get why. It doesn't matter. And I think it's any answer that is quick to answer is the wrong answer. I mean, somebody who just barks out like, "Well, I'm a Democrat," it's like, you answered that very quickly, which makes me think you don't really know what you are. But anyway, when it comes to comics, what I want for comics is pretty straightforward. I want comics to grow. I want there to be lots of options. I would like for the battle of what wins and what doesn't win to be had on the shelf. I like the customers will decide. I would like the publishers, big and small, to have better understanding of what's selling and what doesn't sell so they can tune their business accordingly. And then this is the statement I'm about to make, which probably runs me into the most conflict with people who work either for the comics creators. This is probably the one that I think is probably the most contentious. And it's simply this: for long lasting characters, properties, IP, and generally speaking, this is going to apply to Marvel and DC, and then a little bit Image, but mostly Marvel and DC. I want those characters, those stories, those situations to be respected. I don't want to have dramatic changes to those characters because I want those properties to be maintained and enjoyed over time. I want my children and my children's children to be able to enjoy these comics and have them survive. So my goal here is not to keep them frozen in amber. I don't want the Superman story that was told in the 70s to be the only Superman story that can ever be told. But I would like for Superman, the Clark Kent version, the iconic Superman, to be available 50, 60 years from now. That would be my hope for comics. Will that happen? Who knows? But if I don't support a strategy where these characters are intentionally retired, where we accelerate them going away. And I'd use the example of Mickey Mouse. So Mickey Mouse, obviously, Mickey Mouse came out in the 30s. Is that right? It's we're coming up on 100 years of Mickey Mouse, I believe, or maybe we've already passed it. I don't know the exact history. All I know is Mickey Mouse has been around for a long time, for decades. And Mickey Mouse has changed his appearance a ton over the years. From just the different iterations of this character, we've seen lots of different, representations. Mickey's voice has mainly been the same. Mickey's age is kind of irrelevant. You don't see people at Disney going, "Oh my God, we got to bring in a new Mickey Mouse because this Mickey Mouse would be like 90." And so, no kid can relate to a 90-year-old mouse because that's absurd. It's a cartoon mouse that can talk and has adventures. Nobody is bothering to worry about, is this character relevant? I want, and by the way, and Disney has done many things with Mickey. They've had Mickey represented in lots of different ways. But there is always at least a check to make sure that they haven't strayed Mickey too much from the core. Mickey, we've seen Mickey the businessman, we've seen Mickey the hippie, we've seen Mickey the film producer, we've seen Mickey in different guises. We have not seen Mickey as an eco terrorist. Why? Well, Disney would go, that will destroy the brand of Mickey. I have no idea if the people at Disney have ever proposed the idea of like, let's make Mickey into an eco terrorist or whatever else. We have not seen Mickey, transsexual Mickey. We haven't seen that. Why? Um, because people at Disney are like, well, we need this property to be worldwide, and it's confusing if we start to really get into, Mickey sexuality at all, right? Any form of it. It's interesting. I saw somebody say, well, why can't Mickey be gay? I mean, okay, but that opens up a door on a lot of things. We don't really see Mickey as straight, other than, and it is a big other than, we see him kind of flirting with Minnie. We see him trying to get flowers from me, but it's all very innocent stuff. It's like a romance through the eyes of a 4-year-old. That's the extent of Mickey's sexuality. We don't see, we don't have like an episode of Mickey Mouse where he takes Minnie into the bedroom and gets a throuple going with Daisy, and an angry Donald shows up with a shotgun, and there's a big emotional outbreak. Like, you don't see episodes like that. Why? Well, I mean, for obvious reasons, because it would break the character. It would break the point of what they're trying to do. I am aware, actually, of there is a push to have Mickey come out as what is like not pansexual, but like omnisexual, meaning Mickey is into everything. It was pansexual. I don't Mickey, but it was rejected, and it was rejected for an obvious reason. There isn't a need for Mickey Mouse cartoons where he's boning people. They're just nobody needs that. Nobody wants that. In comics, I want the characters to be able to survive the test of time. That means getting to the core of what they are. Creators come in and they're hired as freelancers, and they're there to kind of tell a little bit of this story. I remember when C.B. Cebulski first took his new position at Marvel, and he gave a little speech of some kind. It was a good speech about how this is one of the world's longest running narratives, and that as people who get to come in, they get to come in and tell a couple pages on that narrative and contribute to this story. And that was kind of his pitch. And inherent was we don't break the character. We don't break the narrative, because it survived before us and will survive after us. And that's a good thing. That's a good goal to have for comics. The problem right now is, I would maintain, and I would argue, or I would debate, that several decisions being made right now are breaking that. They're breaking the characters to the point that we won't be able to see them 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. And I think that there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to see them that far in the future. When you hear interviews, and Tom Taylor gave a couple comments, but you hear these comments from some of the creators, which seem to believe, or they seem to at least be putting out the concept that these characters are near the end of their livelihood. Like they're stale, they're old, and there's not much left in them. And so these changes that are being made, these updates, are required, because the character is so old, so stale, so nobody can even understand what this character is even about anymore. And therefore, we don't need to be as protective of them. We don't need to worry as much about Superman or Batman or the X-Men or other things. And I think that's patently false. I don't get angry at I'm picking on Tom Taylor, but I don't get angry at a creator who says that. They're welcome to their opinion. But I would also say, like, look at the example of Mickey Mouse. Look at the example of some of these characters that have survived, and ask yourself why there's no reason to keep it going. I think with comics, and keep in mind, by the way, because comics are often being compared to manga. Um, Manga often has an end in mind. They have a story, and they're putting out. There's very, very little manga that is just forever manga. Um, Weirdly, like Hello Kitty might be an example of that, of just like, I don't even know if you'd necessarily call that manga, but I guess there's Hello Kitty manga out there. But I mean, there's no intention for that Hello Kitty property to ever end. It's just going to go on forever. Generally, manga has a beginning, some story, and an end. Even One Piece that has been going on for what feels like forever, it's going to end. There is a conclusion to that story, and it will be sad, and people will read it and they'll appreciate it. But it was designed that way from the beginning. It's important to note that comic books, the big characters, the Marvel and DC ones, they were not designed that way. They were not designed to end. And this is, I think, any creator coming on to work on those titles needs to not only accept but agree to that these properties you're working on are forever properties. Forever properties are different from properties with an intended end. Superman, Batman, Captain America, Spider-Man, all the rest, they are intended, they were created as such, as forever properties. And because of that, creators shouldn't come in trying to write an end or writing with that idea in mind. And I wonder, and I'm honestly asking, is that maybe the problem? That a lot of the creators that are coming in they're not really built to write the forever character. They're built to write a story with a conclusion. And so the idea of this is perplexing to them. And so they struggle with it. And then on top of that, I think this is one of the things that's happened in comics because of the reboots and because of the relaunches and we'll just have a crisis and we'll bring people back to life and we'll just change it all around. Because they've done so much of that in comics, it's given every writer this idea of an escape hatch that if things go bad enough, well, no worries. We just reboot and it's fine. We're just back to where we were. It's all good. The challenge with that is, as we've seen, when you reboot, it splits the fandom. People tend to walk away from it a lot more than come in. So whenever you use that, escape hatch, you're losing part of yourself every time. The characters are getting weaker every time when you relaunch. And so your goal should be have creators come in who understand kind of the nature of, I've got to tell a story, I want to do something very compelling, but at the end of the day, I've got to put the toys back in the toy box so that the next writer around isn't totally screwed. I had a lot of confidence in Hickman when he came into the X-Men because he outwardly stated that, and most don't. Of, hey, I'm coming into this. The X-Men is a mess. So many different takes on these characters. But at the end of the day, it's not my toy box. It's Marvel's. And I need to make sure that, whatever crazy things I do, I don't screw the person behind me. Well, now in hindsight, the changes in the X office, and this is where maybe we'll never know, although Hickman's starting to get interviews where he talks about his experience doing the X-Men as having PTSD. You just know there's an amazing story in there of what's going on. Probably not a big surprising one, by the way. There are interviews with Peter David and Chris Claremont and others talking about kind of the hell of working on some of these characters and being interrupted for crossovers and having a plan, but being told the plan just needs to extend for 3 years for no apparent reason, and kind of this battle with editorial. I mean, these are stories that have gone on forever. And you kind of wonder, I don't know, you just wonder, how much that is, of course, with Hickman this time. But the X-Men, for example, are in a state right now where, there's going to have to be a massive reboot. And maybe it's as simple as you just kill off Moira and then you have a new reality and you just keep plugging away, keep going. But that will be a cheat. That's the kind of reboot stuff that does ultimately drive people away. So you do wonder, when Hickman said he's going to be able to put all the toys back in the toy box, what was that plan? What was that moment that was going to set everything up? Because the X-Men have gone severely in a new direction. And I see people saying from time to time, particularly new readers, well, this is very exciting. It feels new. It feels fresh. But, I mean, sales aren't amazing. The trades are not doing well, or all the people who are excited because it's new and fresh, are they still buying the comic? I get the feeling not. But regardless, I've covered a lot here. I guess my point is what I want for comics is that I want these characters, these stories, to be treated with the same respect by the fans, by the customers, by the creators, by everybody that they really deserve. They've got decades of past to them, decades of history. They deserve respect. They deserve a decent amount of care, and that's what I would like to see in comics. And maybe my definition of care is different from others, but that's ultimately what I would like to see. So I did not answer the question. Well, I mean, I have before. I'm one of those. I'm probably one of those fiscal conservative leans left person, or fiscal conservative socially liberal person. I guess. Again, it's such a mess right now. I can't answer that question in any kind of coherent way, but I can answer the question of what I want for comics, and that's my answer. So there you go. What do you want from comics? Thanks for listening.